Metroid Dread, the shocking thing about the sales and where it's positioned on the 2021 bestsellers. Going over some things that I didn't talk about in my recent video. If you haven't seen it, guys, we got brand new videos, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, and of course videos on the weekends as well, every day right here on PlayerEssence. But that's beside the point. The point is that there is some shocking stuff, or at least the most shocking thing that I've seen. Now that I've had some time to digest what's going on with the Nintendo Switch, the Switch effect, as a lot of you guys have asked me about, Metroid Dread and where it's positioned, and how well this game is going to do with another year going forward on the market, and with some other stuff that could be happening. This could be a huge year for Metroid. Before we get into anything, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and make sure you drop a comment before you leave the video talking about Metroid and anything else that you want to discuss. Now let's go ahead and get into what I'm talking about here, and the shocking, or at least the most shocking thing about Metroid Dread sales and what I've been able to piece together here with this. Now recently, Matt Piscatello over on Twitter, who is an official MPD analyst, he gets the numbers, he gets everything, he gets all the data. He recently put out the 2021 best sellers, so for the whole year of 2021 on the Nintendo Switch. Now there's a number of games which you guys are going to see, and I talked about it in my most recent Metroid video, but what I wanted to talk about, or at least more focus in on here, is exactly where Metroid Dread is placed and why that is so shocking. Now if you look at it, it's number 11, and it's right next to The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which we already know had a monster sales period in its first month or so of over 3 million units, with predominantly many of that being here in the US. So if you look at it and you're thinking, wait a minute, if you had like a bingo card, would you have even put The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword near, position-wise, where it would sell next to Metroid Dread? And it's not like Metroid Dread is further down on that list, like it has a big distance between The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. It's right next to it. Now, Skyward Sword HD probably still sold considerably better than it, but the fact that it was right next to it and it came out at the end of the year, Skyward Sword HD had more months on the market to track the sales. That is the most shocking thing so far that I've realized about these sales here, that Metroid did considerably better than many people even thought that it was going to do, considering the past Metroid games. Now, I do think that there's a number of different things here of the game selling so well when past or previous Metroid games didn't. It's something that I call the Nintendo Switch effect, and it takes into account multiple different things with the system. The fact that there is no longer a split base. So for example, back in the day, you have a Nintendo GBA game, then you have like a GameCube game, and it was separated. Not everybody's going to have the money to get both. And we've seen that with the Nintendo 3DS, with Fire Emblem, with other type of games that just don't come over to the home consoles, and it can affect it one way or another. It can affect sales, it can affect pricing, it can affect like so much stuff going forward with these games. But with the Nintendo Switch, you get everybody, people who love portable, people who love home console, all buying the same one game. So therefore, you get more people to buy the game. It's going to do better than what it's done before. Now, you combine that with a multitude of other factors. So, for example, the fact that the Nintendo Switch is obviously very popular, but the fact that you can take it anywhere that you want. Nintendo's mobile systems, or I should say more like portable systems, have always been more popular than their home consoles in every single generation. Every single mainline portable has been more popular, all the way back to the Game Boy, and then also with the GBA, and also with the 3DS, and also with the DS, and with all of them. Anytime that you stack it up against the corresponding console in the same generation, it's beat it out. So I think that's also a major play in here with the Switch effect and why franchises are doing a lot better. But I also think it's because the games are also quality as well, and you just have way more people playing the games, talking about the games, hyping the games, social media, YouTubers, all sorts of stuff. Everybody's always talking about this or that with Nintendo, so therefore it just gives it a natural bump that you didn't see back when Metroid Prime 1 came out or when Metroid Zero Mission came out. We didn't have all that. However, there's one more thing that I think that I didn't talk about, which kind of shocks me, but at the same time, it's cool too, because if you would have combined the sales of a portable Metroid game and a home console Metroid game, it definitely would have had over 3 million, 4 million plus sales when you start combining them. But people didn't really look into that since they're different games. But now with this, with Metroid Dread, yes, it's not two separate games, but you're still combining what people love with the portable and the home console. So for example, look at how well Metroid Dread did in Japan, how it pretty much broke the franchise series record in Japan. Well, that's because Metroid Dread is now a home console / portable game to where you can get that experience anywhere that you want. Whereas back in the day when Metroid Prime would just come out, it'd be like, all right, well, it's just Metroid Prime on the GameCube or on the Wii. That's not as popular as what they're doing with their portable system. So it's the Switch effect. It's the fact that there's just so much social media and content centered around these different types of games. You have YouTubers, you have Nintendo actually helping us out with like the Nintendo Ambassador program to where we can talk about the games and still have fair use and everything. There's just so many factors that are going into it, and that's why you're going to continue to see games like Metroid Dread. You're going to continue to see games like Xenoblade, Fire Emblem, all consistently doing better than what they've ever done before in the past because of all those factors going forward. So it kind of shocked me though when I went back and I looked at the sales numbers for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and I looked at the sales numbers in terms of what Metroid has done, and just like the historical sales numbers. Skyward Sword, even back originally on the Wii, had pretty much outsold any type of Metroid game out there, which makes sense. And yes, it's still outselling it now, but to see Metroid Dread be right next to it, that's absolutely incredible. And on top of that, we've gotten sales numbers, like I stated in my video previously, we've gotten sales numbers for new Pokemon Snap. They're old, but we still got some. We also got sales numbers for Mario Golf Super Rush, and both of those games are seemingly over 2 million and have not been tracking as high as Metroid Dread in the Amazon sales charts, and have not been tracking as high as Metroid Dread in the MPD charts, as you guys can clearly see at this point. So that pretty much tells me that Metroid Dread is definitely a hit and probably right on its way to being the franchise's best seller, if it's not already yet there. I mean, it's probably not there yet with Metroid Prime being around 2.8 million units or so, but I wouldn't be surprised within the next, I would say, 3 to 6 months, somewhere in that time frame. So the next 3 to 6 months, we actually hear that Metroid Dread has crossed 3 million units. It's on its way to 3.5 or 4. So that's very good to hear, because now we know that there's a secured future for Metroid. There's a secure place for Samus, as long as you make that high quality game, you get that marketing going, and you have a system like the Switch or Switch 2 or what's next. People are down for that. People are ready to play Samus's adventure. Plus, we have a whole new lot of gamers that weren't even around back then, that weren't even around in the Metroid Prime days, weren't even around in the GBA days to play those games, and now they want to get into it. They want to give it a shot. So I think that there's so many things going for Metroid. Now at this point, it really makes me happy to see this. And once again, I was shocked when I went back and I looked at some of the stuff, and I was like, wait a minute. Man, right next to Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. By the way, this game came out at the end of the year in October, so it only tracked for October, November, and December, right? So that's just nuts to see that. 11th best. I really like to see that, and I'm glad that it did so well. So what are your thoughts on this? Were you guys shocked on exactly where Metroid Dread positioned? And it seems like it's right there, going to eclipse the franchise best-selling game with Metroid Prime very soon here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, I did cover this recently, but it also kind of connects to my Metroid story that I already did with Dread here. And that is Nate. He talked about on the Nate the Hate podcast a Metroid Prime Remaster for the second half of this year, for the 20th anniversary of the Metroid Prime franchise. And I wanted to just briefly talk about this because I think that this is probably one of the best things that Nintendo could do if they were going to do this. We saw how well The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword turned out for the Nintendo Switch and all the stuff that they fixed with that game. I think that if you took Metroid Prime and you did a really high quality remaster of it and released it on the Nintendo Switch, it would do extremely well. Now, people have asked me like, OJ, what do you feel, or how confident are you in this Metroid Prime remaster compared to, like, let's say a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, where they just take the games and they just pretty much up-res it up to 1080p and here you go. Those are those games. But now the more that I look through and I kind of see what some people have stated on this, people that have got information right before, I don't have any personal sources on it or anything. I'm more confident in Nintendo doing a Metroid Prime Remaster than I am with Nintendo doing a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the other two games, Metroid Prime 2 and also Metroid Prime 3. I think that those could come down the line, or maybe they remaster them individually. I'm not really sure. But what I do think is going to happen is this Metroid Prime Remaster, because there's been a lot of people already talking about that, and I trust the people that have stated that Metroid Prime Remaster is a thing. So I'm guessing that's going to be it. But I feel that connecting back to the first story here, I think that a Metroid Prime Remaster would really help out Metroid Dread. It just gets more people into the franchise just to see Samus and know what's going on with Metroid. Just having that name and having games consistently come out on the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's most popular home console of all time, because it's pretty much its most popular home console of all time at this point. Sales wise, to have it on there is going to give a natural boost to all of the Metroid games that are available on any platform. So I feel that this can be a boost to Metroid Dread along with the demo as well. So I think that there's a number of different things that play into it. So I do feel that Metroid Prime is going to be one of those games that we do get, and I'm excited for it because there are multiple things that they can do with the remaster to make this game really operate a lot better. One of the things that I hated in the original Metroid Prime was the loading screens, or like the loading doors. I shouldn't even say screens, the loading doors. They would mask the loading times by when you shot a door, it just wouldn't open automatically. And it wasn't like there was a timer or anything. It would just like stay closed, and all of a sudden it would open, and it loaded up that other area. So they didn't want to have you go to a loading screen, so they just did it that way, and it was annoying. I didn't like it back then, and it was one of the reasons why I liked 2D Metroid more than 3D Metroid, because 2D Metroid was so fluid, just be able to go from place to place, whereas Metroid Prime, you would have that. And I know that they helped out, like it got better a little bit in some of the other ones, but still, I still don't like it. So I think that now with the Switch, if you remastered it, it would be instant loading at this point, or it'd be very short time period for loading, going from different area to different area and stuff like that. Dread still had loading periods, but it only loaded when you went to like a whole different like section. When you went to that, anywhere in the map, it would be just fine. Whereas Metroid Prime, there'd be places that you were like right next to it and it would load. So I think that with this one, they'd be able to get rid of that completely. And of course, they'd be able to refine the controls and the graphics, the frame rate. I mean, it was already really good on the GameCube. It ran at 480p and 60 frames per second. But imagine that at 1080p 60 and refining that without those loading doors, man. That would be a sight to behold, and it would still look very good, because you can boot up Metroid Prime today, put it on your OLED TV or put it on the big screen, and it still looks really good. Or if you have like a GC HD, it looks great on the monitors. So I'm guessing that it's going to be pretty good when they reveal that. Hopefully we do get that. So what do you guys think? You feel that it's coming? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, guys. We've got a overview trailer on a game that is flying underneath the radar because it's a Muso experience, but it's an exclusive console experience Muso game called Touken Ranbu Warriors. This game looks really good on the Nintendo Switch, and Koei Tecmo put out a overview trailer. It has subtitles in English and Japanese voiceovers. So I don't know if there's going to be a dub for this game. It seems like it might just have subs for it, so you have to read. But other than that, man, I think that this game is going to be pretty good. Now on Twitter, here's what Koei Tecmo America had to say about the game, which many people felt that it wasn't even going to come over to the West. So it says, experience some hashtag Touken Ranbu Warriors gameplay with some special music from renowned singer/songwriter Akiko Shikata. She will be contributing 3 new songs to the title, including the opening theme, Color Barrage. Check out Touken Ranbu Warriors on May 24th, 2022 on Nintendo Switch. Hashtag KT Family. So this is really cool to see this game. They went over the combat in the game, what you can expect, some of the special moves, the mini games. There was just like a bunch of stuff that they went over. And graphically speaking, this looks incredible. If this is the actual graphics for the Nintendo Switch, and it looks like the frame rate is extremely stable, better than Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So I'm guessing maybe they're using what they used for Fire Emblem Warriors. And if they do that, then you're going to have a 60 frames per second mode, and you're going to have a quality mode. So you're going to be able to pick what's going on there. Now, I can't tell 100% because you never know with these Twitter videos, and I'll probably have the YouTube feed playing for you guys, but the game looks fairly good when it comes to the environments and the gameplay. It is a Warriors game, the Muso style game, so you are going to be fighting multiple layers of enemies, so some people don't like that. But I was actually a fan of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. That was actually my game of the year back in 2020. I really loved that game, really because it played off of what made Breath of the Wild cool and expanded upon that when it comes to the different characters that you can use. Because in that game, Breath of the Wild, you can only use Link, and everyone's always thinking, man, what if I was able to use like the different champions and all that? And that game let you do it, so it was cool there. I'm not usually a fan of any of the other type of warriors or samurai warriors or anything like that, but this one definitely caught my eye just because of how visually striking it is. And while it doesn't look too different from what they've done before with other Warriors games, it definitely has a little bit of a different edge to it. And of course, it's exclusively on the Nintendo Switch, so I want to see how it runs and plays and everything like that. And it came out of nowhere as well. Now, I'm not sure if it's coming to other platforms. I think there might be a PC version at some point or something like that, but they haven't talked about Xbox or PlayStation at this point yet, but maybe it'll come over later. But either way, this is an exclusive. It's on the Nintendo Switch. It's coming out this May here in the West, so maybe I'll check this one out. I'm definitely thinking about checking it out and seeing it based off of this new gameplay trailer. It looks pretty good. So what are your thoughts on Touken Ranbu Warriors, the overview trailer, and the game itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the final topic here, guys, we've got some NPD sales updates. The Nintendo Switch once again dominates the charts here in the US for December, outselling the Xbox Series X/S and also outselling the PlayStation 5. So the Nintendo Switch was the best-selling console in the US in December 2021 in terms of unit sales, according to the figures from the NPD. NPD includes the dates for the 5 weeks period from November 28, 2021 through January 1st, 2022. The Xbox Series S/X was the second best-selling console, while the PS5 came in third. The Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5 were essentially tied in terms of dollar unit sales. The Nintendo Switch is the best-selling console in 2021 in terms of units sold and dollar sales. So there's a bunch of different statistical data and information if you guys want to check that out, link in the description. But once again, it kind of ties back to what's going on with the Switch and why I think Metroid Dread is doing so well. Look at these huge sales numbers that the Switch is putting up. The Nintendo Switch OLED was absolutely a beacon for Metroid Dread and for games to do better. So many people picked up another unit and said, okay, it's launching the same day as Dread, so therefore I'm just going to pick up the Switch itself and Dread. And with that color scheme, it matched up and it lined up so perfectly. So it was like a exclusive Metroid Dread Switch bundle without being that. And that's one of the reasons why that Metroid Dread has done so well. And one of the things that I actually pointed out why the game was going to do so well, because it's launching that new OLED model. OLED screens are incredible. People were upset with the price, but anybody who bought the Nintendo Switch OLED and actually played it on that screen, you know that it's worth it because that screen quality is so good. If you have an LG CX OLED or other types of OLED TVs and you use your Xbox or your PlayStation or your Switch on there, it instantly makes things pop. The richer black color, richer colors and more vibrancy, it's just so much better. So having that in your hands right there to have that little miniature OLED, and from what people remember with the Vita and how cool the Vita screen was all the way back in 2011 when they first had it there, I think a lot of people opted to get that Nintendo Switch OLED, and it makes sense here as the Switch is leading in units and also dollar sales being an effective tie. But for the whole year, they've actually led in both. So that's awesome to see. And once again, the Switch OLED is just tearing it up at this point. So I can see Switch OLED continue to do really well, Metroid Dread continue to do really well, and a lot of the evergreen games that we saw in that top 20 continue to push the system and the hardware and vice versa since it's integrated at this point. And you only need that system, and then you just need the game, and you get it portably, and you also get it home console. That's just the ingenious design of the Switch and why it's doing so well, despite it not being as powerful as the other systems or anything out there, because it's outselling what the PlayStation 4 did. It's outselling what the Xbox One did. So even if you want to compare it to last generation, it's outselling that. When people say, oh, well, there's chip shortages, that's why Switch is doing better. Well, it's doing better than the systems that released last gen too at any point. It's outselling them. So I think that this is a really good thing for Nintendo, and they're going to keep the momentum going. We got Pokemon Legends Arceus coming out pretty soon here. We've got a lot of different games dropping, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So what are your thoughts when it comes to the Nintendo Switch sales here. Koei Tecmo, what they've got with Touken, Ranbu Warriors, Metroid Dread sales, Metroid Prime Remastered potentially coming. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace.